Alright folks, today we're going to look at the Shimano SOARE jig head. This is actually the first JDM jig head that I ever tried. I have a crappie fishing video using this in May of 2017. I bought a couple of packs from finessefishing.com, a US vendor, not a US manufacturer, but a US vendor of these jig heads. And yeah, I have more than 2 years of experience with them. The first thing to note about these jig heads is pay attention to what you're buying, because they have quite a few different variations, okay? They have the skip head, and I'm gonna pull these out of the packaging in a second and show them to you. But they have skip head, they have drag head, they have these tungsten ones with slightly different head. I don't know what it says here in Japanese. If you can translate, I'll be very grateful. And they also have, in terms of colors, they have unpainted, they have white, and they have also glow. Okay, here are the three types of heads they have. This first one is the skip head. As you can see, it has very flat surface on the head. Okay, good for skipping. I have never tried skipping under docks, but I think this one would work. Then this is the drag head. If you ever felt that you don't lose enough jigs crappie fishing, I mean, this one will really help you lose a few more. But yeah, interesting head, really designed for dragging, I guess. And the last one is, I think, closer to the skip head, but because it's not designed for skipping, this is the exact profile of the head, okay? Now notice that all three of them have the same hook. As a matter of fact, I have some of them 2.5 gram, some of them 0.8 gram. And regardless of the color or the weight of the head, all of these, for me, that I have found, are exactly the same size hook. I don't know why that is. You can let me know if you know different sizes, but it just so happens that for crappie fishing, okay, this just so happens to be the perfect size hook. Not for trout magnet, as I'll show you in a second, but for crappie fishing, you don't need any other sizes. I'm gonna hold them like this now, then grab them like this, so I can compare, okay? So as you can see, the shank on the SOARE is just a little bit longer, the gap is a little bit bigger. See how further the tip is from the shank, and the shape is very interesting and different from hooks in United States, but I gotta tell you, in Japan this is a very common shape, okay? Here is a chance to look at the sharpness of the tip, okay? You can already see it's much thinner wire than the trout magnet. And in terms of sharpness, you see this? It is a sticky hook. It is much sharper than the trout magnet. But I think it is not quite as sharp as the Daiwa Gecko Bijin jig head that we looked at in the previous episode. Now, because the stem of the hook, the shank of the hook, is longer than the trout magnet, this hook can get out of the trout magnet lure where the cut is after the cut. So, I mean, the lure stays entirely on a straight shank. So putting a trout magnet on one of these jig heads is just a piece of cake. I mean, every time I try, it goes on perfectly straight. Try to focus here. And let me show you another one. And yeah, it comes on perfectly straight, beautiful installation. Now I'm gonna say something with which you might disagree, but you would be wrong because I am the biggest expert on this. Of all the trout magnets that I have, and there is a couple that I don't have but I don't like, of all of these colors here, okay, nothing really looks good with the unpainted or the white jig heads. The only two colors that kind of match are the white and pink. I think this one looks decent. And the white and orange. I think this one also looks decent. Okay. Nothing else looks good with these jig heads. So I'm gonna kindly ask Shimano here, if you don't want to make these in any colors, at least give us a black one. A black color jig head is a perfect fit for any color. As a matter of fact, black color jig head is a perfect fit even for white body. So can we have a black color jig head, please? Now, how does it fit on a trout magnet, or how does a trout magnet fit on this jig head? I think the size of the head, this is 1.2 gram by the way, is fine, although I try to pair the trout magnet with jig heads that are not bigger than the cross section of the trout magnet. But I find this eye here unnecessarily oversized, and if it must be oversized, then please don't paint it. Okay, just regular metal would be just fine and not so visible. I tried stripping one of these of the paint with the pliers. It's too much work, then it's ugly, and I hate it even more, so I gave up on that. The other kind of issue, not issue with the jig head, because remember, these are saltwater jig heads designed for catching aging and mebaro and all of the Japanese, shorefish. But with respect to trout magnet, this gap here is a little bit too big for me. Now, I did use this a lot. They catch fish no problem. I would just prefer the gap to be a little bit smaller if this were to be the perfect fit for the trout magnet. By the way, the barb on this hook is absolutely microscopic. I mean, it's amazing that you can see it here on the camera because I can't see it with my eyes, which makes, unhooking the fish just super smooth, super pleasant. Because of this particular angle, this hook does catch, almost every bite does catch the crappie, okay? Very few missed crappie bites with this. You will have missed bluegill bites because as the bluegill come from behind and they open their mouth, this gap can be a little bit too much for the mouth of a bluegill, okay? But you will find out later that what you were missing was a bluegill. If the fish is crappie, you're not gonna miss bites with this hook. The wire on these jig heads is quite soft. I know some folks like the eagle claw jig heads because the wire is soft, and when they snag, they can straighten the hook out just enough to get an unsnag to pull the hook out, and then they, twist it back with pliers, or sometimes you can do it just on this one, just with your fingers. So yeah, the wire is soft, and to be honest with you, a couple of times the wire even got straightened out a little bit just from a crappie, okay? But it's not easy. Like, it was a 10-inch crappie, fine, not a giant, but not a small one either. But the only way for a crappie to straighten this hook is if the hook grabs the crappie for the bony part of the mouth, So this section here with the barb cannot penetrate the crappie. If the section can penetrate the crappie, then all of the force when you pull on the fish falls here on the shank, and there is nothing to really straighten. But sometimes the hook will grab some bony part around the nose of the crappie, okay? Will grab something hard. Now if you pull, now all of the pressure falls in the bend of the hook, and it is very soft and malleable wire. So in some particular cases where you snag the crappie in kind of a hard point, it is possible to open these, but I never lost my fish because of that. So don't worry if that happens, just put it back in shape with the pliers and you'll be good to go. Now because the gap around the trout magnet is so big, I actually don't use these jig heads for trout magnets. I do use them, however, with this silver. This is my favorite use for these jig heads, with these white and silver tubes. These are the cheapest one I buy from Walmart. Actually, I find they work the best. Now this combination of white jig head and this silver white body, I have to tell you, is an absolute killer when you fish crappie brush in the deep, especially if the water is a little bit dingy, so you don't have good visibility. I don't know if it's the glow head or what it is, but this, maybe just the whole thing resembles a tiny little minnow or piece of shad, just perfectly. It's just the perfect size, the perfect bite size for crappie. But this is one of my deadliest things to tie for deep brush for summer fishing when the water is a little bit dingier. For me, the biggest downside of these jig heads is their price. I don't know how much they cost in Japan, but I can't find them in any of my Japanese vendors like Digitaka or Platt. I can't find these guys anywhere. The only place where I can buy these is eBay, where 3 or 4 hooks cost $6, sometimes $6.50 shipped. And the unpainted ones you can find on this US vendor that I mentioned, finessefishing.com, but even there they cost $5. So to wrap it up, other than the price, I can't find any issues with this jig head. The gap is a little bit big for trout magnet, so for me this is not the perfect jig head for a trout magnet, even though the body sits so damn straight and it's so easy to put on. And you can fish it like this and you'll be perfectly happy with this. But aside from the fit for trout magnet, if you want to fish this with a little bit thicker lures, like a tube or any of the insect Berkeley stuff, that would be a perfect fit for that, if also the white color fits you. So yeah, I don't have any issues, any criticism of this jig head. I really love it, and hopefully I can find some cheaper source of these, and hopefully Shimano makes a black one too, because I do want to have always a few of these in my tackle box. That's all I have for this video, guys. If you want to watch the next episode, make sure you're subscribed, because more jig head videos are coming, okay? Thanks again, and bye bye.